All right. Hello, everyone. How's it going? It is Max with BuzzTox here, and I am back with our last episode stream where we kind of go through theories, thoughts, really talk predictions before we dive into the last episode of Westworld. I just want to say before we get started, I will be doing live streams after this episode. I'm going to be doing, definitely we got to have a discussion on how the show ended. I'd love to have a discussion on that. Also, I want to talk about the channel. The last couple days have been insane. Really because I really wanted to put a video out. I've been talking a lot of my videos about William and how I think he's going through the path of the door, but I don't think anybody's really fleshed out what that is. So I basically procrastinated, and then I would sit down and I would write up a outline. And this is where, as a YouTuber or as somebody who talks like entertainment, like my job, this is where you get the most work, is that you're writing and it's creative work. So I will sit down and you write out an outline, and then I think it's crap. So I throw it away and I start another outline. And then basically it got to the point where I kept putting it off and kept, putting away the script. And then I sat down today and was like, well, I have to get a video out. So I said, screw it. So I sat down and just talked. I just recorded it. And then I just finished it, and what great timing. I put up my 30-minute William video on my channel at 7 o'clock the same time I'm doing the stream. So that's probably going to take people away from the stream, but what are you going to do? So I'd be interested to see what the reaction is to that video. It's not monetized. I decided, screw it, because I have so many clips in there. There's like 15, 20 different clips that are monetized. It basically plays like a movie. So I really just made it to get out my thoughts, because I feel like in terms of Westworld and in terms of William, I have all these thoughts that I need to try and just get out. And I did that in that video, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in this video as well. But with all that being said, we have a brand new episode coming out today. It's a little risky putting out a new theory video today, because it's going to become either redundant or really, really, legitimate based on tonight. So if there's any new revelations on William, I might take that video down and retweak it. I don't know. I just really wanted to get it out there. But yeah, that is it. Right now we have 15 people in the chat. That's actually less than usual. I bet you any money the majority of them are just watching this new video I put out. Not very smart of me. But anyways, right in the chat we have Fung Kusum Fung. He says, hey, what's going on? We have Megan Marjorie. What's going on, Megan? We have Support Gaming 2020. He says, hey, what's going on? Excuse me. And Support Gaming came in with our first question. He said, did you notice from last episode that William and Caleb had the same ID profile? So in terms of the same ID profile, I'm not sure. Was that found when Bernard was checking him inside the recovery facility? In terms of, theories and Caleb being William, I don't think that's the case. I think it just wouldn't make sense. Caleb is clearly a original person who was an outlier that they manipulated to fit into this window, and he's a very different character from William. William is an outlier as well, but he's an outlier that can't be changed, like Caleb. And I think that these two characters, they're different enough, and they're going to tell different stories. I said it before in a previous video. I think Caleb has the potential to become more like a Bernard. Bernard is essentially Arnold, which is a human, and he's Bernard, which is a fictional, made-up character. And the current Bernard has kind of become a fuse of the two. I think with the help of Dolores, and I think it's the same thing with Caleb, where you have Caleb, the actual person, but then he was changed by Rehoboam and Serac, which ends up creating a new entity, a new character, and that's the Caleb that we know in the show. So that's where I think they're going with that. Whereas with William, I think he's going to be the only character that actually goes through the door, who actually ends up becoming conscious in a host body. And I think that's where, a prisoner of your own sins comes in. And it's going to be an extremely it's like a bittersweet, ironic kind of ending where William gets the life that he wants, where he's with the hosts and he's in the world where he feels like he belongs. But at the same time, he's still a prisoner in his own sins, where he's stuck in a robot body, and he's stuck, living forever, a part of the project that he started to create. And I think he'll essentially become this. The Westworld, this dystopian future. He's kind of stuck in this world, and I think that's a part of his arc. But there we go. We're starting to get more people in the chat. We also have Mighty Mo. We have ACC. We have Renee. We have Shaz's World. What's going on? Ostro. Thank you guys all for showing up. ACC says, am I the only one who didn't believe that Germany Dolores is Dolores Prime? Germany Dolores would be... when are they in Germany? Was it when Dolores was with Liam and he was getting that award? I'm not sure. But my perception... watch me eat my words when this episode comes out. But I don't think there really is... a Dolores Prime, because there can be, what makes Dolores who she is the body that she resides in. If you take a look at Charlotte and you take a look at Dolores, they started deviating paths because Dolores is her own person and she lives in her own body. And then you have Charlotte, who started to identify with Charlotte Hale, the actual person, and she ended up falling in love with her family. So what I'm saying is, if Dolores created 2 copies of herself, she put both of them in her body, then it would be the same person, because there's no differences in their character. There's no they identify with their body, and there's no, they're not being thrusted into a new story. So, sure, there might be 2 different Doloreses that look the same, but I don't think one of them are prime. I don't think one is better than the other, because they're both the exact same thing. They're the carbon copy of each other. So that's what I think about that. There may be another Dolores out there, but it's not prime. It's not better. It's just another version that has the exact same memories, the same everything. What else do we have here? Shaz World says, just finished your last episode. Are you considering doing a post-episode live stream? Yes, like I said, I will be doing a post-episode live stream. Also, there's going to be, it's hard when a show comes out like Westworld or Game of Thrones, because I put everything into it and I cover it. So I do like 2 videos and a live stream every week. The coverage has been a little bit less on Westworld this time around, just because of my lifestyle right now, even though with coronavirus there's nothing really going on. But I didn't do as many videos. The only thing that makes me think is, I love doing the live stream. So after Westworld is over, I'm like, damn it, like I want to keep doing them, but there's nothing to do it about. So if anybody here has any ideas, let me know. Just put it in the comment section. You don't need to put it in the chat. If you wanted to do more live streams, what would you want those to be? Would you be interested? Because I know I love doing them. I love having a discussion with you guys. But there's nothing to talk about, so we'll see. Support Gaming says, do you think we will find out who Dolores' final copy is? And will Maeve finally come to her senses? I don't know, man. Maeve has been pissing me off like you wouldn't believe. And let me first give you the the benefit of the doubt of Maeve that I've read in the comment section down below is that people are saying that it's a duality of the character arcs, where Dolores essentially feels like she needs to take it upon herself to save the whole species, whereas the duality is Maeve wants to just be there for her daughter. It's the nice duality in character, which I'm like, sure, but they're writing Maeve in a way where she unnecessarily has to do things that undermine Dolores and her own kind. Sure, she doesn't trust Dolores. She doesn't know if Dolores has the encryption key. She doesn't know what Dolores did with her daughter. There's all these uncertain things. But how the hell does aligning yourself with Serac change anything? It doesn't. Maeve would be so much better off to go work for Dolores and help Dolores, help her own kind, and gain Dolores' trust to then get the encryption key. Why would she align herself with Serac? It doesn't make any sense. The motivations are all wrong. What they should have done to make it more believable is they should have leaned in more to the fact that she was being held against her will by Serac. Which, to be fair, that's an argument you could give. But if that's the case, I wish that they laid into that more. I wish that they conveyed more, instead of the pain of Maeve targeting Dolores, not trusting her and having her daughter, the anger should be targeted towards Serac, and Maeve had to, against her own will, fight against Dolores. I feel like that would have been more compelling, and it would have made much more sense. If they just tweaked the drive there, I think it could have been a bit better. Ostro says, tonight's episode is an hour... Tonight's episode is an hour and 15-minute runtime, has a 1 hour and 15-minute runtime. Are you surprised we didn't get more extended episodes this season? It really, I need the last episode to see. My only thing is, no show needs to be 10 episodes. Or every season doesn't have to be held to 10 episodes. Excuse me. You basically have the right number of episodes to tell the story that you want to tell. So I want to see this episode to see if all the plot lines go together. It doesn't feel rushed. They told a complete story. I do think that if they had the choice, they would have had a longer season. I think HBO cut their budget, and I think they had to decrease the episode count in order to portray what they wanted to on screen. Because if you look at some of the characters like Bernard, he was completely sidelined. They've basically been moving Bernard from plot point to plot point to plot point. There's no development there, which I miss. And I feel like there was a lot that they had to explore with Bernard, because he's still going on his path. He's not conscious right now. He's just like any other host. He scrambled his memories. He has no control over his functions. He has to put himself into analysis to be able to tell if Dolores is messing with his code or not. So I think, there was a lot of places where I think they could have given Bernard more room. But maybe they want to delay that down the line. But we will see. I'm interested to see where they end off with this season, because we know that they greenlit for a season 4, and I think season 4 could take many different shapes right now. What else do we got here? Renee says, it seems again more likely Serac is in Rehoboam is a Rehoboam AI and is no longer a human. No, I buy that. It makes sense. He's always a projection, and it's just him implementing himself inside of the glasses or the tech or the artificial intelligence. So yeah, to be honest with you, that does make the most sense, especially since when Dolores and Caleb went to discover the place where they were keeping all the outliers, and they saw Serac's message to his brother. Serac essentially said, I've changed. I'm a different form. So he essentially hinted at that's a possibility. It's what I will say though is it does seem like in the preview trailers that Serac is actually there. He's holding a gun to Caleb's head. If he was artificial, or if he was an artificial intelligence living in Rehoboam, he wouldn't be able to do that. So, based on what I've seen in the preview, it seems like he's more real. But yeah, we will see. Don't mind me while I chug my water. Fung Kushfung Fug Says, do you think it is a bit hypocritical of Charlotte Dolores, to be vengeful over Dolores Prime letting all of her copies die, but then go ahead and get Musashi Dolores killed? He even let Clementine go. Yeah, with hosts, I don't see death the same way. Like, I don't see Clementine and the Chinese armistice, I forget her name. But them killing Musashi, it wasn't ending him. They still have his pearl, so they can reboot him in any way that they want. And I think that they would. So I think that's where they're going with that. In terms of Charlotte all of a sudden taking this, drastic turn in another direction, it's the same thing I have to say about Maeve. To me it's misguided character, and it's the same thing I found with Game of Thrones, and I got so mad. And what it is you have the beginning of the story and you have the end of the story, and the end and the beginning are concrete, but you have this to play with. You have a couple of things that have to happen, so you have to write the story to hit those points. And if you're looking at this show, in the script, they need Charlotte to get mad at Dolores. So they even showed us Charlotte got blown up and she saw this guy walking out, and then that was it. And now all of a sudden she's against Dolores, even though it was Serac who attacked her. Instead, Charlotte should have discovered that Dolores put the hit on her to kill her. That would have been more compelling. Dolores right now seems like the good guy. It would make her seem more like a villain to the audience, more mysterious. Why would Dolores kill Charlotte? Why would she do that? It's her own ally. And really, we would discover that Dolores just wants to protect. It's a part of her plan to make sure all of her copies die. So she is the only sole copy, and she can, do with her copies as she pleases. And that would upset Charlotte. So I think the plot just needs to be tweaked. But yeah, to me it's almost the same thing as the Maeve issue. So yeah, what does that mean Charlotte is doing now? I don't know. I think it's safe to say that she did align herself with Maeve and Serac, which is weird. And we know that because, Clementine was there, and that other Chinese woman, I don't know her name, but they're allies of Maeve, and Charlotte was there to warn him. So it's clear that they're all working together. So I don't know if Serac ended up... He essentially has Maeve convincing all of the hosts to side with him, to send them to the Valley Beyond. And that's the biggest trap there is, and I think that's ridiculously stupid. That's why I think Maeve should be held against her will. They should have leaned into that more rather than the anger towards Dolores. And I think Charlotte should have legitimate anger for Dolores because Dolores actually tried to kill her. So there's some tweaks I would have made, but we'll see what happens at the end of the episode. Renee says, it seems again more likely Serac. Yep, we just talked about that. Scampoli says, Max, do you think Serac will hold up his end of the bargain with Maeve, or will he betray her? I don't think he'll have a chance to betray Maeve. But he would betray her for sure. And he would use the Valley Beyond as a research. And it's the same thing Dolores said to Maeve. Like, you can't put your consciousness and everyone we know in this fake world created by humanity, because it is controlled by humanity. So, he would send Maeve in there and all the other yahoos. They'd go in the Valley Beyond and have a great time. Little do they know, Serac can just click the delete button and wipe them out. But another thing he could do is he would have full control and manipulation over their world and who they are. He could alter their code. He could alter the code of the world. He could run experiments on them. He could... Another thing he could do too, which I think is very likely, and I think we'll see it unfold next episode, well, this episode, is he has Rehoboam running a simulation of the world, and he has a very clear agenda on what he wants that world to be. He doesn't want outliers, he wants conformers. So he wants people to fall in line, to be able to save humanity. There has to be a path for everyone, and everyone has to be like engulfed in a society. And I think what he wants is, if he accesses the Valley Beyond, Ford has said it, all these people have said it, that hosts are innately better than humanity. They're kinder, they're better. Ford tells Bernard this. They're the next step in human evolution, essentially, except they're not human. And I think what he wants is a window into a utopian society. He could essentially go to the Valley Beyond and see the society that these hosts have created. And he can mimic that strategy within Rehoboam to then impose that on humanity. So he would try and conform humanity to be like hosts, which would make it even more like Westworld. I think it would result in a different government, a different style of leadership, a different culture. It would have this whole different world that we've never seen or experienced before. Anyways, Shaz's World says, no, there are 6 host anomalies on Rehoboam. All of them have been accounted for, except the one in Germany. I'm trying to think of the one in Germany. You're going to have to jog my memory what Dolores did in Germany. I'm not sure. But next question. Okay. I'm going to be done with that mug by the time this in like 10 minutes. Support Gaming says, I think the host Emily from season 2 post-credit scene is Dolores. Whether we get to the plot point in season 4 or 5 remains to be seen. Yeah. So it's possible that one of the host copies is Emily. We see Emily kind of harassing William in episode 4. It could be a figment of his imagination, but it could also be a host print, a copy of Dolores playing Grace or Emily, and that would make sense because we know Emily becomes a host. In the post-credit scene of season 2, like what Shaz's World was talking about, William essentially comes in, realizes he's doing fidelity testing, and he sits down with his daughter. So the way I think, it's likely it could be Dolores. It is too early to tell. It could be a copy of Dolores, or it could be... it could be just some random other character that kind of created herself in Emily's body. But the whole point of it is to, for fidelity testing, they say this in season 2, that you need someone with a familiar face. It's better if you do a sit-down interview fidelity test with someone who's a familiar face. It's more effective. But the one thing that I've always said about William, and I talk about it in the new video I put up, is... William is he's an extremely complicated character, and you cannot pin him down. If he sits down with his daughter, she has a very different perception on who William is than Dolores, than Lawrence, than Ford, than anybody. Because there's literally a clip of William, and I put this in the video that I did today. He tells Dolores that she taught him a valuable lesson, that nothing is real. That, the real world is just this fake society, and that Dolores, she was the most real thing that he ever felt. And she proved to him that she was not real. She didn't remember him. So that essentially told him that life is a game. It's all fake. It doesn't matter. It's not real. And because of that, William has only ever played characters. He's never been himself. When he's the billionaire philanthropist, titan of industry, he's a white hat. He's a good guy. When he goes into Westworld, he is the man in black. He causes pain and suffering. He's a black hat because he wants to inflict pain and suffering on the hosts to make them feel more real, because that's the world he wants to belong to. It's traumatic for him that the one woman he fell in love with isn't real. So he makes her suffer to try and get that from her. So in terms of him sitting down with Emily, that's such a one-sided perception of who William is. I think the only person who's truly seen William for who he is Dolores. So to answer your question, yeah, it would make sense if it was, you know, a copy of Dolores inside of Emily. But also the other side of it is William would identify more with a visual representation of Dolores sitting in front of him than Emily. So that's what I think about that. I think, you know, regardless, I'm just going to beat this drum until the whole show's over. But the door to, I'm telling you, the door to Dolores, or just the door into a host body, that's what's happening to William. That's the story that Ford wrote for William. And it's the way it goes. So no matter what way they play it or what way they spin it, I'm telling you, the show is going to end with William in a host body. And I think Jemmy Simpson will come back and he'll be young William. Because it's just like, you know, Ford wrote 2 stories. The moment before he got shot in the head, he wrote Journey into Night, which was the story for the hosts, about a villain named Wyatt who was going to kill the park owner, find their own maze, and then go to the mainland. But then he wrote a story to accompany it, and that was for William. And it was the journey of self-discovery. And it's William finding himself. If you look at season 2, William goes through and makes amends for all of his actions, and he pays the price for them. And now we're in the second part in season 3, where he is becoming who he is. He, you know, last episode when he beat the shit out of all of his older selves, he finally decided who he is. He found that journey, and now he has to go through the door eventually. So I think that's how that's gonna go. What else do we got here? Richard Cheney, what's going on? He says, what's Maeve going to do in the Sublime Valley Beyond? Her daughter already has a mom. I hope Serac has her motivation wrong, as he had Lee Sizemore's motivation wrong. No, I don't think he does. I think the one problem, the reason why he had Lee Sizemore's motivation wrong is because Lee Sizemore is a human. And that's the one thing Serac really desires, is how to accurately encode a human. And the only person who has that data is Delos. They successfully learned how to do it. The only thing they cannot do is print it into a host flesh. So that's why he didn't understand Serac's motivation, or that's why Serac didn't understand Lee's motivation. In terms of Maeve, I think he's dead on the money right with Maeve's motivation. And it's not that hard, you know. He ran her in a simulation. He could have done a lot of things to get her motivations. And yeah, I think it's that simple. And I think Maeve is that simple. She's made it very clear from the beginning. She doesn't have it for any other host. She only really cares about her daughter, even if she wants to go be with her daughter to kill off their whole kind. It doesn't make any sense. And that's what I find so funny about this whole thing, is she's going to help Serac. She's going to help Serac. Let's say the best case scenario happens for Maeve. She's going to help Serac. She's going to kill Dolores. She's going to get the key. She's going to get all excited. She's going to go sit in the Valley Beyond and watch this other mother raise her child. And she's going to be stuck in this world with nothing, where Serac has the key to destroy the whole thing. So, you know, if Maeve continues down this path, she's screwed from the get-go. So that's why, you know, I said in the preview video that I think Dolores is going to get out. I think Caleb is going to download Solomon, however the hell you say it. Everyone corrected me on how to say Solomon. Solomon? I don't know. Anyways, I think Solomon, I'm just going to say that. I think Caleb's going to download that strategy to Rehoboam. And that's what'll happen. But people in the comments are like, you know, Dolores deserves a loss. She's been winning too much, da-da-da-da-da. But I think at this point, the stakes are so high that Dolores has to win. Because if Dolores loses, then it's game over. Let's say Dolores loses. Great. Serac gets the key. He kills Dolores. He puts Maeve in the Valley Beyond and kills her. Boom. It's all stopped. Unless Dolores has a contingency where she has like another Dolores sitting somewhere else. But I don't know. We'll see. Enzo says, do you think that Charlotte thinks Dolores killed her family and did not realize that it is Serac who actually did it? This would explain the fact that she leaked the location to Serac. Yeah. No, it's possible. I would have personally, like I said before, I would have written it the opposite way, where Dolores killed Charlotte, or Dolores killed Charlotte's family, but she blamed Serac, and then she learned it was Dolores. But in terms of her jumping against Dolores, I honestly think it's just played right up the middle. She had concerns that she was going to die, and Dolores allowed her to put herself in danger. Because Dolores kept encouraging her, and yeah, she ended up getting attacked, and she lost everything because of it. So, the one thing that I find funny about it was Charlotte made a definitive decision on her own for the first time. She decided not to, do exactly what Dolores said. She decided to go and save her family and drive off with them, and that choice cost her. So I think, rather than blaming Dolores, she should take responsibility for her own actions. I don't know. But I feel like they might flesh out more why the anger isn't founded. I'm not sure, but we'll see. All right. Carl says, I think that may be done internationally. What's going on here? Oh, there's some drama going on in the comment section. Sorry, guys. Got a little distracted here. I wish I knew what Don Baca was saying. But, honestly, okay. The one thing I'll say about a conversation, guys, is I'm not about running such a tight ship that we can't hear voices from, negativity, For example, I put out a video, the last episode I talked about some of my issues with the show, and they made a comment saying, why don't you just stop talking about Westworld then? Somebody made a comment saying, why don't you just stop talking about Westworld if you don't like it? And it's like, no, I love Westworld. I just had some issues with this episode. I'm allowed to discuss my issues. So one thing I will say is, if there are people in the chat who genuinely want to have a conversation and, they have something negative to say or anything of meaning, I think we can definitely talk about that. Unless he's just a troll. But anyways, that's my 2 cents. Shaz's World says, he says, I like to think that Emily is a host in the far future, where she is one of the many hosts created in the future, not a main player right now. Yeah, that's also a possibility. It was set so far in the future. If you literally look at the place, it's covered in sand. And I think that's a metaphor. Dolores told William in the first season that he will soon die and decay, and his bones will turn to sand, and amongst that sand a new god will walk. And I think that's the whole idea. And it's the same thing with this poster, if I'm pointing the right way. And what that is a new god is rising on the sand of humanity. It's the evolution to a new species. And that's why I interpret this being William, this poster. because he got what he wanted. He returned to the world of Westworld, of the hosts, a world where he felt like he belonged. But at that, he paid a price. And that's the double-edged sword of what Ford created for him. That, at the end of this whole thing, he'll be in a prison of his own sins. All the sins he created, investing in the park, keeping the hosts alive, spying on people to pursue immortality, it all embodies this image. And now he's alive on the bones and the sand of his human ancestors. It's a pretty dramatic end. But bittersweet. Support Gaming says, doesn't make sense for Dolores to get pissed at Dolores unless it's a fake out, and Serac was the one talking to Masashi Dolores in episode 7 right before. Yeah, so I think they're going to play that down the middle too. Like, I don't think Serac was pretending to be Musashi. I think they're trying to create drama, that they had somebody go against Dolores, and that was herself. She went against herself. But I wouldn't be surprised if next episode we see Charlotte kind of tempering and messing with Dolores while she's trying to fight into Insight to access Rehoboam. I think we're going to see Maeve's team. She's going to have Clementine. I want to see Lawrence. We need to see Lawrence. He's a very, very important character. Particularly now, since, William has a gun pointed at Bernard and Ashley. I think he eventually needs to he eventually needs to see Lawrence. And I think right now, William's at this weird place where he feels like he needs to kill all the hosts, which is funny because looking at his character, that's exactly the opposite of what he should be doing. So I think he's going to come to a consensus there and realize that, oh, wait, I want to save the world. And what's actually destroying the world is humanity. And I always belonged with the hosts. I never belonged in this real world. He genuinely told his wife that. This woman was drunk and upset in season 2, and he literally sat at her bedside and said, look, I don't love you. I don't belong in this world. I'm kind of fucked up. And then he left. So that's literally his character. He said this stuff before. So it's no surprise. So he's going to turn. He has to. If they keep William on the path of killing hosts, that is one of the biggest character deviations I have ever seen, because it goes against absolutely everything they set up with the character. So yeah, and at that point, I just find that entertaining. It would blow my mind if they did that. So I think this episode or next season, we'll see William go on the journey of changing, and we'll start to get more of a Delos versus Insight. A Serac versus William, Serac is defending and changing humanity, whereas William is fighting and liberating the hosts, his own kind that he created or helped create. Azora Lowe says they will have a good laugh when they realize they were in Ford's simulation the whole time. I gotta say, I really miss Ford, man. The video I put up today, I had some clips of Ford, and I was just mesmerized by Anthony Hopkins' acting. Oh my god. He did like a 2-minute speech on a peacock, and I was like blown away. It's really, he's really talented. Yeah, so I've been really enjoying him. In terms of Ford being in a simulation, what I will say is, we know Ford was inside the simulation in the cradle, and he was living amongst the hosts in the cradle. He couldn't be printed into human flesh because they don't have that technology yet. He downloaded himself to Bernard. Bernard deleted him, and I think he's genuinely gone. Bernard purged Ford from his code. I think we will see Ford again, though, and I think he will manifest himself through Bernard's consciousness. I think Bernard is going to start to hear his own voice again, and we're going to realize that once again it's his own voice. My goodness. Before I came on the live stream, I had like 10 minutes, so I ate a steak really quick, so don't mind me if I'm really gassy. Scampoli says, haven't watched your new video yet, but do you think William is transferred to a host? His loop will begin with his intro in season 2. In terms of William turning into a host now, no. It wouldn't make sense, and based on the plot, it wouldn't line up. I feel like William's role this season is going to be the exact same it was last season, where they have a build-up and then he does nothing. He just gets in the way. So like in season 2, he went on this whole journey. He killed his daughter. He made all these decisions this time in the park. He has a new storyline from Ford called The Door. And then he gets there and he tries to shoot Dolores and blows his hand off, and then that's it. I literally think this time he'll probably show up at Insight and be like, "What's up, guys? I'm here to kill every single host." And then he'll get like stopped or something, or like who knows. But I don't think William is going to have an impact in this season at all. But I think the one thing that's important with William right now, though, is he's creating the fidelity tests for his character now, where he's actually himself. He's found William again. That's the journey of self-discovery, where he's not playing the white hat, he's not playing the black hat, he's being William, which is very rare because William's whole life he's been pretending. And Dolores screwed him when he found out she wasn't real. So, yeah, I think that really affected him. Shaz's World. The problem with a badly written show is that it forgets that a story is as much the journey as it is the destination. Very true. I still think Westworld is doing a great job, honestly. I have no complaints at all. You want to talk about writing, and it's about the journey, not the destination? Flippin' Game of Thrones, guys. I won't talk about it for long because this is a Westworld chat, but I made prediction videos, and I think I made a video rewriting Game of Thrones Season 8, and I can tell you, and it's not just me being confident, I took their plot beats that they needed to have, and I made it 1 billion times better. Because their writing was just stupid. Like, it had no depth, and like it was just terrible. But it's so funny what you can add to it. You add so many complexities, but it still ends up at the same destination. And all you have to do, it's not that hard. You stay true to your characters. And for some reason, these writers can't do it. So that's my only thing with Westworld, is right now Westworld is doing great. They need to stay true to their characters. Like I was saying with William, he's made it very clear who he is, and they need to pay that through. Him saying that he wants to kill all the hosts does not align with his character. So that's why I think he's going to change. In terms of Bernard, too, like Ford literally said on the beach that, maybe one day we'll meet again where the waves conspire. He told Bernard, he's like, you have to remove me. You have to mix your memories. And that was his consciousness saying, you have to remove this voice to be able to hide your reveries from the humans. And he did that. So if they don't pay off that plot point, then they've written themselves in a corner, because that's what they presented last season. And I take the writers of this show, they're very into it. Unlike the Game of Thrones writers, these writers, Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan, I think they have a cohesive vision. So I'm just enjoying the ride. W says, I think Dolores doesn't make it past this season. Wow. That's pretty, it's a big statement. What I would say about that is I think this is Dolores' show, mainly. So I don't think Dolores is going to go this season. I don't think... I think Dolores will go eventually, but I don't think now. I feel like they still want Evan Rachel Wood to continue the show. And I feel like she has a role, too. A big role to play. And I don't think she's completed her mission yet, and I don't think she will this season. So I think there's still going to be more Dolores. However, when Dolores dies, or if Dolores dies, I think Bernard will kind of take her role, but in a nicer way. What else do we got here? Funkusfog says, do you think Francis is really dead? In a preview, we see Francis wearing an orange jumpsuit in prison of some sort, and that hasn't happened yet. No, it hasn't. I have them in my preview videos. In terms of Francis being dead, I think he is dead, because for them to do a plot twist that Caleb killed Francis and then to go back on that saying that Francis isn't dead, it doesn't make any sense. Like, what incentive does Serac have? Unless Serac is sitting in the background being like, let's really mess this guy up. Like, let's make him think he killed his friend, and then we'll hide his friend over here. So, yeah. Unless they pull something like, God. They said that they sometimes like to have them turn against each other to kill them, to remove them out of the thing. But maybe Serac is actually taking the one and putting them in the outlier facility where they're in a coma. So the only way that I think Francis would be alive is if he was within that coma. And he was being held there. But then that wouldn't make sense, because I think Francis was also one of the 10 who were able to be changed, because if he wasn't able to be changed, he wouldn't be let out in society. So, man, I don't know, man. I think that'll be through Caleb's mind. I think Caleb is going to be reliving some memories, and I think Dolores is going to be inside Rehoboam, seeing strategies, getting to see her past more as well. And I think it might be possible for Caleb to do the same, but we'll see. Zora Lowe says, once she emerges from the simulation, she will know what she needs to do next season. Yes, very true. As I was saying in my preview video, I think right now Dolores and Caleb got the strategy designed by Sublime, if I'm saying that right. Probably not. And they don't know what the strategy is. It's on a hard drive. So I think the whole incentive for Dolores and Caleb right now is to get that drive to Rehoboam to see what the strategy is. But then another thing too is Rehoboam is a supercomputer that works with you. So right now, Serac has a strategy that he picked, downloaded onto Rehoboam, and it is manipulating everything to ensure that it moves that direction. So I think one thing that they need to do as well is they need to take that strategy that Solomon designed and they need to download it to Rehoboam. So then Rehoboam looks at that strategy and does everything in its power to push that strategy. So the simplest example I can give is if you look at the stock market. So in Westworld, well, then a couple episodes ago, we see Serac showing Dempsey Sr. that you can manipulate the stock market. It can project where the market's going to go. You pick it literally shows you 10 different ways the market could go. You have Rehoboam pick one, and that's the way the market's going to go. So as soon as Caleb and Dolores download this Solomon strategy, its new strategy is to destroy humanity. So what's the first thing it's going to do? It's going to collapse the stock market. It's going to collapse their economy. It's going to destroy them, the foundation of the society they stand on, the government, the market, everything will just crash. And I think that's why we see that scene where the lights flicker and Maeve is like slicing people with guns in the dark, is because on top of that, I think Rehoboam connects to the guns, the auto assist feature on the humans, and it makes them shoot each other and start shooting at Maeve. And I think that's because Rehoboam is now helping Dolores and Caleb achieve their strategy. And I also think Dolores, when she's in there, she's going to be experiencing. I think she'll experience the strategy. So she'll experience different outcomes. She'll experience different possibilities. And I think you're right. I think she'll emerge from it being like, "Oh, okay, I know what to do," and she'll go do it. What else do we got here? W says Dolores is going to die, and customers will interrupt at all, and customs will intercept all the Taco Bell. That sounds terrible. You know, I haven't had Taco Bell in like 5 years. I was obsessed with the Crunchwrap Supreme. An interesting fact, that's the only commercial that ever sold me on food. I literally saw on the TV, Crunchwrap Supreme, and I was like, yes. And I just left, and I got it. I didn't have a car at the time, so I got my mom to drive me to get a Crunchwrap Supreme. And boy, oh boy, were those good. Zora Lowe says, if Caleb was a host, he would have been fried by the EMP. But it is a simulation, so anything goes, I guess. Yeah, no, I don't think Caleb is a host now. The only thing I was talking about is, my God, there's that steak again. The only thing I was talking about is that Caleb has the potential to become a host. Like, let's say if Dolores prints a pearl. She would essentially be able to download or to take Caleb's character and impose him in the pearl, because Caleb is not entirely human. He's been altered by Serac to conform. Just like Bernard, how he's Arnold and Bernard. So I think Caleb is human now, but I think if he wants to take that path and say if he aligns himself with Dolores, then great, he'll do that. And yeah, that's another thing. People are talking about Dolores dying. You know what? If she were to die, and I'm not saying she will, Caleb would be the one to pick up the torch, because that's the nature of Dolores, where, you know, she dies and she is just incentive for Caleb to, you know, exterminate his own kind. So that's a possibility too. Yeah. Support Gaming says, I doubt this is true, but people keep theorizing that season 3 is with multiple timelines, like season 1. No, it's I know it's not, because it's filmed differently. If you look at season 1 and 2, they're filmed in very specific ways that convey to you that it's a multiple timeline. And if you look at my Westworld season 1 episode 2 video, we ended up predicting that William was the Man in Black. In the first episode, we even saw William, because that was how they filmed the show. They had little idiosyncrasies that allowed you to see that. The one, and you can tell with this show, this season, it's filmed chronologically. But in terms of the timeline jump, the only thing I would possibly say, and it doesn't hold that much weight, is that it's not a timeline jump, it's a reality jump. So instead of jumping from timeline to timeline, it's jumping across different realities. So in, you know, one scene we may be in the real world, another scene will be in the simulated Rehoboam world, and it jumps across realities and it's presented as one thing. So, you know, it's possible to realize that, you know, for example, a particular scene with Dolores was always in Rehoboam. But yeah, I don't know, but they've already conveyed different realities with Maeve and simulations and all that. So I think all in all, this season is played basically straight down the middle. Scampoli says, it looks like William is taking a shot at Bernard in the trailer. How do you see this relationship progressing? Progressing. I just realized I don't know how I say that word. I say progress. Weird. Especially considering Bernard is irreplaceable. Yes, but so is William, and that's what's crazy. Is these two characters, Bernard and William, are both irreplaceable figures. As I said before, Bernard said it himself. William can't die. They can't kill William because he could potentially be a part of Dolores' plan, and he is. If you watch my video I put up today, don't watch it now. Stay in the live stream. Watch it later. It basically conveys that. What was I talking about? I totally just forgot what I was talking about. Hang on, guys. I got this. How do you see this relationship progressing? Oh my god, guys. I just had a friggin' blank. Wow. Jog my memory. Somebody put something down to jog my memory. Well, we're not getting anything. I'm SOL. So. Oh, friggin' William taking the shot at Bernard. They're both irreplaceable. They're both irreplaceable characters. Bernard needs to keep William alive, and Dolores is using William. She's pursuing Ford's plan, where she's the journey into night. She's Wyatt. She is causing this host uprising, but then there's the journey of self-discovery. William is going through the door, and I think Dolores is helping Ford achieve that for William. That's why she didn't put William coincidentally in that recovery facility. She needed William to go in that recovery facility and realize who he is, that he's not the makeup of who he was or the decisions he's made, that he can make his own true self and true character. And he did that, and William is finally coming into his own, and Dolores is aiding him do that. And in this world, things aren't as they seem. When every time Dolores treats William a certain way, there's other emotions underneath. Like if you take a look at William, he fell in love with Dolores to the point where she messed him up for life. And he kept going back as the man in black and torturing her, making her suffer, treating her like garbage. But it was because that made her suffer, which made her seem more real. It was the only way and the deepest way he could connect with Dolores. So that's what he did. And with Dolores, she doesn't forget the good parts of William. She remembers fondly of who William was. And I think she's trying to return him to that, to who he was. Yeah. And Bernard, when he gets shot, I'd be interested to see if Bernard gets shot. I think it would be a really interesting scene if, Ford or William just pumped his shotgun and shot both Bernard and Ashley. I don't know where the story would go from there. We know that they have to come back. I think we'll get a last minute plea where Bernard's like, please, we can work together. And I guarantee you the first thing Bernard is going to say is Dolores is doing this, Dolores is doing that. And then they're going to try and go after Dolores because she's leading this revolution. So I think Bernard will, will talk his way out of it. Azora Lowe says, I'd watch more The Adventures of Young William. I agree. I want Jimmy Simpson back so bad. I really miss him. I also miss Abernathy, those two actors in particular. I really miss Lawrence. So I hope we really start to see some character returns. But yeah, Jimmy Simpson, man. They're missing the perfect opportunity to phase him in. We have Ed Harris, who's an amazing actor, but he's old. I think they should start phasing him out. Let maybe season 5 replace Ed Harris with Jimmy Simpson. Let Jimmy Simpson lead the charge. That's why if you talk to me during season 2 time, not now, and projected, what I think this season would be, I would basically have the character of William, Jimmy Simpson, replace Caleb. Like, to me, Jemmy Simpson would be the person leading the charge against his own kind. But, that's just me. But I'm happy with the story that they're telling about surveillance, and, they're telling a whole new type of technology story, and Caleb's right in the center of it, so. Da, 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 da. Fung Smug says, there's a theory about Dolores and Maeve have just been playing enemies against each other to fool Serac. What do you think? If they're doing that, then they're doing a very good job. Wow. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they would pull that. The last piece of media that I watched do that was Game of Thrones, and they pretended like Arya and Sansa were against each other. It is still a plot point I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. And I think if they said, like, if Maeve and Dolores were like, surprise, like, we were pretending to hate each other, but we actually love each other and we're working together, it would lose me. Yeah, no, I don't think it. I don't think that'll happen. Maeve is there. W says Maeve is there to distract Sir Sucks, while Bernard puts the happy place somewhere. Then Dolores sacrifices herself to get Ford in the arena with Jean Me. A lot of what you said is actually like a good idea. That they're actually all working together. But the one thing with that is privately they have all conveyed their motivations. So if they were to convey that all these hosts were actually working together, Maeve, Dolores, and Bernard, then they must pull some crazy sleight of hand, because that would be crazy. But it'd be kind of cool, because all the host kind would be sticking together to achieve a common goal, and they would all be playing different roles. I think it's pretty sweet. Enzo says, the Dolores we see in this season is a distraction. She'll get killed, but Serac won't get what he wants because the real Dolores is in Berlin. It's like a trap made for Serac so he can reach her goal. Yeah, I agree with that. Very true. I like that. Scampoli says, do you think Hale was an outlier like William? Earlier in the season, it shows Hale sending a message to her son at the gala, showing that there is more to Hale than Serac predicted. Yeah, no, that's true. So what he's basically saying is that Serac says that, Charlotte didn't really care about her son, but yet the real Charlotte sent a heartfelt message to her son. And yeah, I think part of it, you could say she's an outlier. Like, she's friggin' crazy. Like, she killed Elsie. Like, I would say that that's outlier material. But I think another thing the show really dives into is suffering. And I think it was a point of desperation. So, yeah, I don't think they're going to go back to the human version of Hale. Like, I think that story's done. But what's funny, though, is even if you look at season 2 and the way Charlotte Hale interacts with everyone, she seems totally fine. Like, if I was thinking about doing this because I would be fascinated by it, but genuinely go through season 1 all the way to season 3 and put it in chronological order. Like, chronological order no matter what. Because if you look at it, it wouldn't really line up. Like, if you took Charlotte crying, saying goodbye to her son, and then flash to her with Bernard in season 2, it would feel so jarring. So yeah, I don't know. Brian says, do you think season 3 is better than season 2? It's too early to tell. At this point, I would say no. Really just because a lot of what I loved about Westworld was still in season 2. We got to focus on Bernard. We got to focus on all the characters that we ended up getting to know. We got Ford. We got William. We got... and we explored a concept that I found really interesting. Whereas with this season, I feel like they jumped onto the idea of like, let's copy Westworld, but for humans. So then they ran that direction. So now they're introducing a whole new thing. So it's kind of redefining the show in a way. I do miss some of the characters. But at this point, I can't say I like season 3 more than season 2. But, hey, if it's a really good last episode and it wraps everything up really well together, then it's a possibility. Jay Patel says, what role do you think Bernard's going to play tonight? I wish Bernard was more present. Like, he's barely been around. And they haven't even given us enough to, like, theorize about what Bernard is going to do. Like, we've seen symbolism of the one in the center with the 5... My God, with the 5 surrounding. The 5 surrounding would be the Doloreses. And it's clear that Bernard is a very key part in her plan. The only thing I really have to say about Bernard and his role is who he is. Dolores changed Bernard to make him who he is. Basically, she was doing fidelity testing to make an exact copy of Arnold, and she decided that he shouldn't be an exact copy of Arnold because Arnold didn't make it. And the one true distinction that I've seen in the show is Arnold told Dolores that which is real is irreplaceable. So Dolores disagreed with that. She's like, that's not entirely honest. And then he was like, you're kind of freaking me out, Dolores. And then in season 2, at the end of the season, Bernard tells Dolores to save the hosts in the Valley Beyond. And Dolores justified destroying the Valley Beyond by saying that which is real is irreplaceable. She basically told Bernard what Arnold told her that long ago, which leads me to believe that she left that affliction out of Bernard, which would make sense. Ford told Bernard that he's better than humanity. He would never be able to defeat humanity because he has such a kind heart. Dolores, she won't. She'll kill them all. She doesn't care. She has to become the Judas steer in order to achieve her goal. So all in all, I think, Dolores is sad that she has to play the role of the Judas steer, but she knows that, and she made Bernard the person to pick up the pieces after she's gone. Because his new affliction disagrees with that which is real is irreplaceable. And the hosts are irreplaceable. And under Bernard's jurisdiction, they're real. And he's there to fight for the hosts. And look, I really think that's his main role. I think from what they've given me with Bernard this whole show, they haven't proven to me that Bernard knows what the hell he's doing. Because basically this season, what we've got is he's wandered around, plugged himself into computers, asking if Dolores has messed with his code. And he's wandered around. He tried to find Maeve. He went to try and find Liam. He's going and jumping between finding these different characters, and he's trying to stop Dolores, but he doesn't know what Dolores is after. He doesn't know how Dolores wants to destroy humanity. He has no idea of anything. He just stumbles into things. So I really don't know. He needs to find his own center. He needs to be conscious. He's not right now, so I think that's a start. God, he doesn't. Right now, he's so fixated on stopping Dolores. He doesn't understand what he's even useful for. So I don't know. I have no idea. Like, I have no idea. But that's the one story I don't know about, because we haven't gotten enough on Bernard. I'm just so fixated on him finding his own center. But anyways, Carl says, I actually thought the poster was Dolores, because if you look really closely, there's a little bit of what looks like Dolores Blue Rancher's outfit left on the leg of the robot. Yeah, so we're talking about this poster right here. If you look right here, oh, my finger can't. I wish I could put my finger like over top of it, but it won't work. On the leg, there's a blue mark on it. It could be. I don't know. I just see it. It's really just a visual representation. Like the poster for season 2 was a vulture in a hat that represented Ford. It was kind of like the all-seeing eye. And it was a vulture, he was a bottom feeder, he was a human. It was basically the perfect resemblance of Bernard overseeing what's going on in Westworld. And I just personally think it could represent Dolores. I just really like the imagery of it representing William, a prisoner of his own sins. There he is. But yeah. Scampoli says, we will get Lawrence tonight. There have been on-set photos with him, Maeve and Clem. Are you serious? That's all I've ever wanted. And we need Lawrence. You know why you need Lawrence? Because of the William, of the Man in Black. If you watch my video after this live stream, and I guess after Westworld, you can watch the video. But William and Lawrence have developed like a friendship. And William really values Lawrence as a person. He's the only person who treated William as an actual person and took the tone. There's a quote that William said that, no one's taken the tone with me like you have. And he appreciates that. Last time they saw each other, William chose to save his wife. But Lawrence remembered that William killed his wife in another life. And he ended up shooting William. So they ended off on not the best terms. But what's funny with William is every time he goes into Westworld, he goes straight to Lawrence. He tries to work with Lawrence. He loves his company. So I wouldn't be surprised. What if we see a flip? Just like last season where Maeve is trying to convince Lawrence to remember who William is. Maybe William is now trying to convince Lawrence who Maeve is. Because right now William is on this journey of where he thinks he needs to destroy all the hosts. And I think he's going to pull back from that by actually seeing hosts that he really identifies with. I think William, the two closest relationships William has ever had in his life are Dolores and Lawrence. So I think that might start to have an effect on him. W says, what if all of this is Dolores' pearl that is hooked up to a malfunctioning power board? Yeah, that would suck. That would be quite the ending. That'd be like the host equivalent of It Was a Dream ending. W says, William's role this season is to piss me off. Yeah. We'll see where he ends up. Like, I actually don't have a problem with what he's going through now. At the end of season 2, I was mad. I was so mad. You can probably look at my rants at the end of season 2. But I've understood that my theories of William going through the door, it's a multi-seasonal affair. It's going to take multiple seasons. I'm just enjoying William's ride. I think he's going through, his journey, like we all do in life. And I think he'll start to come back around. Jay Patel says, what do you think will happen to Dolores' storyline? Yeah, so I think Dolores needs to become more ruthless. I think that's her core part to play. she hasn't hit it yet. I'm actually really shocked at how they've presented Dolores in this season. This season, to me, kind of portrayed Maeve as incompetent and Dolores as the hero. That's just the way I view it. I thought like season 3 would convey Dolores as a ruthless villain, like Wyatt, just ruthless. And I think she's going to end up going there. I think she'll end up... I think they'll paint her as like the man in black, but not like the woman in black. And I think there's multiple reasons for it. Dolores is not a bad person, but she understands what she needs to become in order to save host kind. She needs to exterminate them all, and then she also needs to make her own people or her own hosts suffer. They need to suffer to become more real, to find their own center. Journey to the center of the maze, find their consciousness. So that's her role. I think she's going to be perceived to be a true villain. So that's where I think she's going to go. What details there are in between, I'm not sure. Like, we see her hooked up to Rehoboam in this episode coming up. So there's different scenarios, right? Like, Dolores could make it out. They could have downloaded Solomon's strategy to Rehoboam. Rehoboam could be fighting back to help Dolores and Caleb. They could escape. Or Dolores could die there, and there's a secret other copy of Dolores waiting it out. And what we'll realize is that the end of this season was the end of phase 1. And now Dolores is moving on to phase 2. And that's where I think she'll be more ruthless. But regardless, I think she's going to go that path. Just like how I talk about William, how everyone says that he's a terrible person, he's the man in black, yada, yada, yada. I say he's playing a character. You never know who he is, because nothing to William is real. He's the white hat in reality to be a billionaire philanthropist in a capitalist-run society. He's played his game so well that he's been rewarded heavily. He's pretended not to be an outlier, so that's been successful. And he's a black hat in Westworld to make the host suffer to be more real so he can belong in the world that he wants to belong in. And with Dolores, it's going to be very much the same. She's going to be coming into another world, being the true villain, making them suffer, making them experience pain. And it's just like a character she's playing because she has a goal to achieve. And I draw attention to it in my video, but William and Dolores have really a lot of similarities. They almost duel each other. They're mirrors of each other. And that's why, to me, it makes sense that their paths always intertwine, because both characters are responsible for taking the paths that they have taken. William has made Dolores who she is, and Dolores has made William who he is. So I think that is probably the strongest and most important character connection in this show. And I think a lot of people at this point have discounted it, but I am telling you, I am far in the William and Dolores camp. Anyways, Scampoli says, are you a fan of the X-Men movies? Yes. Fan of the X-Men movies. Yeah, I like them. My favorites were the remakes, but I didn't watch the last one, the Rise of the Phoenix or whatever. But he asks, Bernard and Dolores have a very similar relationship as Magneto and Professor X. Very true. I agree. For those of you who don't watch X-Men, Magneto is essentially the villain who believes that people with superpowers should be able to express it and live their lives, and they're better than regular people. Whereas Professor X is more of like, you need to control it, and he creates a school for superpowered people to control them. And then it's ethically what's the right thing to do. Professor X is hiding who you truly are, whereas Magneto wants you to be who you truly are, and it's complicated. But yeah, I totally agree with that analogy. I think Bernard is a fine middle road. But that's the one problem with Bernard, and that he has yet to understand this. But last season he killed Dolores. Like, he shot her in the head, and then right after he killed her, he was like, what did I do? Like, I need Dolores. I need her. She's needed to kill the humans. The hosts won't survive if Dolores doesn't live. So he brought Dolores back to life. So, Bernard realizes that Dolores is needed. So all he can really do is try and mitigate her actions. But at that point, it's just a means to an end. So I don't know. Like, maybe Bernard will try and save the outliers. I don't know. But it's getting... I don't know. What else do we got here? Ooh, jeez. Oh my goodness, donations, guys. Thank you so much. Eric J.R. donated $5. Thank you. He says, your video Ford's plan for William was dope. Which one do you like better, Westworld or Matrix? And have you watched the original Westworld? Thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoyed my new video today. And thank you for money. Thank you for the $5, because I'm not making any money from that video. I did it out of passion. It probably took me like 15 hours. But yeah, to answer your question, Westworld. I love Westworld. Have I watched the original Westworld movie? No. I guess I'm a hypocrite. And I haven't watched The Matrix, believe it or not. I just never got around to it. That's all I'll say about that. Jimmy Olsen Blues donates $2. Thank you so much. He said free coffee until season 4. Thank you. I'll be very sparing with that $2. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Secret Spy Records says, what do you think the instructions for Caleb will be? How to put Dolores together again? Yeah. It's like Humpty Dumpty? No? Yeah, so what he's talking about is last episode, Caleb was called, and he's like, Caleb, we have something for you to do. Yeah, to me it's clear it would have to be, because we see Dolores back. The only person who can bring her back is Caleb at that point. So I would only assume that that's what it was. In terms of what the strategy is, Caleb has no idea what the strategy is. All we know is that Solomon wanted to preserve the most human life, and Dolores said, no, pick the last one, the last strategy. And Caleb just went along with it. But I think we'll discover the truth of that projection that Serac's brother made. And I think that strategy that he made was complete human extinction. And I think Dolores knows that he made that strategy because she knows everything about him. She watched his life. She watched Serac's life. And we know that Serac's brother was always ahead of the curve. He wanted to kill Dempsey Sr. before he needed to be killed. And that's the thing about being an outlier, is you think outside the box and you don't follow that script, right? And I think he came to the conclusion that humanity was doomed to the planet, and that it's time for a new species to come, evolve, and rise. And I think the strategy he picked was to save host kind. So I think that's what that is. And I think that's basically the strategy that Caleb will be fighting for. I think he might try and preserve the outliers. I'm not sure where that will end up going. But the thing with the outliers is they're not even themselves. There were people who weren't able to change. And I think the reason why they're outliers is because their core drive is not survival, which means they're not easily calculated, which I think it would be, those people would be capable of transferring to a host body. So I think it's possible that the outliers don't get left behind. They just get transferred into a new body. Infrastructura Rigor asks, why was Dolores so afraid from the Charlotte hologram in the trailer. Because it's a Charlotte hologram, you know, I would be too. You know, she hasn't seen Charlotte in since the event. She doesn't know if she's alive or dead at this point. And seeing a hologram of Charlotte appear, I'm sure that would be frightening because she has no idea what's going on. And I think it's scary because of what she could do. The information that Charlotte has. She has the encryption key. Charlotte has all this data that Dolores has. She is Dolores. So I think it's just the ramifications of it. Like, oh my God. Like, I didn't think that a copy of me would try and screw me over so bad. So yeah, I think it's just fear of what Charlotte could do. Locke says, Ford knew what he created, turned the whole world into Westworld, and that humans and hosts were all being controlled by his tech. Ford's that kind of guy. That's smart. Same name, Infrastructura Rogar, says, I think Westworld should not mix real world with Matrix world because we'll be very disappointed if we were played out along all this season. Yeah, I don't think we will. I think they're going to convey a lot of the, you know, simulated strategy stuff during this episode. Maybe, you know, a bit next season as well, but I feel like we'll understand when they're in a simulation. It's like season 2 when Dolores and Bernard went into the Forge. The bars of the screen shrunk, and they were in a simulated reality. We got to see characters that we haven't seen in a while. It was great, and I think it's the same thing that we're gonna see in this episode. Enzo says, oh my God, I'll miss those live streams before Westworld. Me too, man. I'll miss Westworld. And I'll miss these live streams. And as I've said before, I love coming on these live streams and talking to you guys. And I can't think of any content to come and talk about. So if you guys have any ideas that you want me to talk about, I would love to do live streams. You know, there's somebody that I watch online, John Campia. He does a movie show. I would love to genuinely just have a discussion once a week, whether it's about, you know, movies, TV, whatever. I'm game. So let me know. Carl McCaffrey says, about William being important to Dolores. So do you want me to like add to what I think about William and Dolores? Or why William is important to Dolores? What I'll say is you should watch my new half-an-hour video. But another thing I would say too is William was always important to Dolores. He was the only person that she truly fell in love with. She remembered him 30 years later, and the good and the bad ended up turning Dolores into who she is. And now I believe Dolores is following Ford's storyline to now turn William into who he is meant to become. I think she is conditioning William to return to himself, because all William has ever done is play a character. He was a white hat, he was a black hat, but he was never William because the world was never real, and it never warranted him needing to be himself. And him being himself never got him what he wanted anyway, so why would he be himself? And I think, you know, there's a reason he's in the recovery facility. There's a reason why he ended up beating all of his old selves and deciding that, you know, he is who he decides to be today. And that's all because Dolores strategically is visiting him and putting him in situations where he's on that journey of self-discovery. And that's a path of going through the door. And I think eventually this guy will turn into a friggin' host, and he'll help take down the humans. He'll be like Dolores' partner in crime. Brenda Starr says, do you think Dolores' plan is to release all the outliers to create chaos to end humanity? Yeah, so if that's Dolores' plan, then that is Serac's brother's plan, because it's very clear that Dolores put her complete strategy within what Serac's brother wanted, that Solomon created. I think she knows what that strategy is, and I think that strategy is is destroying mankind. The one thing I will say about the outliers, though, is they are the one saving grace of humanity. The one problem with humanity is that we were never truly conscious to begin with. We just think we are. And Ford talks about it last season, that humans are just passengers to their behavior. We think we have self-thought. We think we have freedom of choice, but we don't. We're held to our core drive. And our core drive is survival. And that which is free can change their own core drives. And I think outliers are able to change their core drive. Therefore, they are basically an evolution of humanity, which would mean that, Dolores' quarrel isn't with them, it's with the general population of humanity. So I think those outliers could be released on the world to help to fight a revolution, to help defeat the Seracs and the controllers and the wealthy in the world. Or they could be, after that, they could also be transferred into a host body. So I think there's a lot of different possibilities there. I basically think that, Dolores has the army of the hosts. I think Caleb is going to have the army of the outliers. I think basically that's what it's going to go for. I think that's what we'll end up seeing. Infrastructura says, what if Dolores is still in love with William? I've been saying it since the beginning, and it's not a very popular opinion, but I think she is. I think you got to remember with the hosts that, Dolores' memories, fond memories of William, are just as real as the poor memories of William. And the suffering and the pain that he caused her led to her awakening. And, her not being real led to the suffering and pain that changed William's whole life. So both these characters have dramatically affected and damaged each other. And they've both changed their paths. So I think it'll come to a point where those characters could end up back together. What else do we got here? I need more water. John says, what I am banking on is a great season 3 finale. I mean, the show was already renewed. Imagine a flop finale. Yeah, that's a good point. You got my hopes up. Yeah, imagine if it was a terrible finale and then we're going into a season 4. I think it'll be really good. I think the strategy that I need to implement and you guys need to implement, and I think it'll be better for me this time around, is you have to leave your expectations at the door. And my expectations are very different this time around than last season. And what I mean by that is, this season, I have the clear direction the show is going to go for the next couple seasons. Like, Dolores is still going to be around, and she's going to be becoming more of a villain. And, Caleb might take a role, whatever. I think Serac still... oh my god, I think Serac still may be around. But all in all, I don't have a definitive ending that I want out of this season. Whereas with last season, they were going on about the door. We saw James Delos fidelity testing. We saw all these different things that led us to believe that the door was the passage from a human to a host body. And then out of flippin' nowhere, Akecheta jumps through the door to a simulated reality. So I was pissed because the very specific ending that I wanted of William becoming a host was completely undermined. So that's why I was disappointed in the end of that season. I thought William would have turned into young William, a host, and then he would have joined Dolores to help fight off humanity. I thought that would have been perfect. But they didn't do that. And I think they're playing the long game with that story. But in terms of this season, I don't have any deep, specific expectations. So I think wherever the story goes, I think I'll be fine. Richard Cheney says, what about the mazes in the real world? Call back to Akichita? Yeah, that's interesting. We see all these people graffitiing the maze. And I think it's funny how, the maze was assigned for consciousness and finding your own center. And now it's like this revolution symbol of being free. It's like they're trapped in a maze. The hosts, all they want to do is find the center of themselves, the center of their own maze, whereas the humans want to break out of the maze they've been kept in. So I think it means different things. In terms of Akichita, no, I don't think it's an Akichita thing. It could get out by Bernard, it could get out by Dolores. It's really just a symbol for people to rally behind to help the fight against the humans. Infrastructurta, I'll never learn how to say your name, I'm sorry. They say, can a host feel love? Why in the trailer we see host material growing like human cells? This means hosts can have real feeling and not just coded feelings. It means they can reproduce. I think biology is very different than emotional feeling. I think with the host, love is definitely a true thing. But the one thing that I will say too is the core of, a lot of people are saying like, oh, hosts should reproduce and this and that. And I think you're looking at that through a very human perspective. What I mean by that is our core drives, as I was saying earlier, is survival. But also it's to reproduce, right? And every animal has that affliction to pass on their genetic code. Friggin' lions, they go and they kill cubs that aren't theirs, so they're not a threat, so they can have their own kids to pass on their own genetic code. It's a primal directive. So I think it's a very human-natured thing to assume that hosts want to reproduce. But hosts don't have a desire to reproduce, don't need to reproduce, and don't need to pass anything along to the next generation. They are every generation at all times. So I think it's a very different species, and we can't apply human rules to host rules. I think they're very different and separate entities. But yeah, that's what I'll say about that. Jay Patel says, who killed Charlotte? If it was Dolores, why didn't she just use a bigger bomb? Yeah, I don't know. It seemed like it was Serac. In the video, in my reaction video to it, I was like, oh, it was probably Dolores. She wants to keep Charlotte on a short leash. She doesn't want Charlotte to get too attached with another life because then she becomes unpredictable. It would make sense for Dolores to want to kill her. But it seems like they're playing it right down the middle that it was Serac. But we might get a reveal that it was Dolores. I think that makes sense. But it was a very quick revelation that Charlotte made. What else do we got here? Richard Blum says, can you explain how someone like Charlotte Hale has a profile/book? Are we to assume she was a guest at Westworld? Well, that's assuming that they're even using a book. First of all, you could assume that Charlotte went to Westworld and they would have a book. But secondly, there's no information to show us that they really understand Charlotte. Dolores literally printed a host body that looked like Charlotte and put her marble or pearl inside. It's not Charlotte at all. It's just someone who looks like Charlotte. And that's why Serac is like, you're behaving nothing like Charlotte. That's why she's so close with Charlotte's family and kid and all that. It's because that's Dolores' character, but it's getting sucked into Charlotte's story. But it has nothing to do with Charlotte's true character. I don't think they have that information. I think it's just Dolores' pearl inside of a Charlotte body. I'm actually, so it's 8:42, guys, so I'm going to take a couple more questions, and then we got to wrap up. I got to set up for the show. I got to get a cup of coffee. I've been, like, working all day on that video, and then, you know, I got to wake up so I can do the reaction and review, which will be out tonight. And then I really want to do a live stream very soon because I really want to talk about it. So I think on Monday, tomorrow, we'll do a live stream for for the last episode. But let me know what you think. But to answer some final questions, Park 2 says, do you see Caleb's character plot transitioning past this season after tonight? Yeah, it'll transition. I think he'll take... He could take different roles. He could take the place Dolores wanted him to kind of take charge of Solomon's plan, destroying humanity. I think he'll become really the leader of the little guy. I think he'll be fighting for the outliers. And I think the outliers are a very important part of this because they're basically an evolutionary advantaged human where they'll be able to be reprinted into host bodies. But yeah, I think he'll take the role we all think he will. I think he'll whatever happens to Dolores, I think he's basically going to move on with her agenda. Infrastructure. Someone asks, how do you think Caleb will escape from the Serac gun pointing at him? Yeah, so I gave my prediction in the preview video. I think basically Caleb and Dolores are going to split up. I think Dolores is going to take the bridge, and that's surrounding the Insight facility, and that's where Dolores is going to fight Maeve. I think Caleb is going to split up and go kind of along with the revolution with the people. I think before Dolores gets there, Caleb is going to download the Solomon strategy to Rehoboam. So when Dolores is plugged in and being sucked into Rehoboam, Caleb is going to have the gun pointed to his head by Serac, and I think the download is going to complete. Rehoboam is now going to have a new strategy that is Serac's brother strategy to destroy humanity, and I think Rehoboam will fight for them. I think he'll turn off the lights. I think he'll have the guns that the humans are using to point at each other and shoot each other, and I think Serac will leave, and I think that's how Caleb will get out of it. He'll have Rehoboam work for him. Locke says burp talks. Very correct. Very correct. What else do we got here? Enzo Glazzo says, if you look at the end of the trailers, the poster is animated and you can see those pieces of blue fabric flying in the wind. Yeah, so maybe that proves my point that it's Dolores. Who knows? Maybe that's a strategy that we see play out where Dolores doesn't succeed. And that's her sitting with nothing. Shaz's World says, they weren't on-set hosts. It was his Insta, and it was them hanging out. Oh, okay. He's talking about Lawrence being in the show, which I'm very, very excited for. So we'll see what happens there. Man, oh man, I am so far behind with these comments. Steve Cancel says, I watched your video and don't necessarily disagree that Dolores fell in love with William, but then where does that put Teddy? She's always had a history with him too, and you saw how it broke her. Yeah, it did. So they were programmed to be like lovers. That's who she was told to love. William was an outside force that she just attached to, and it stuck with her. Even 30 years later, she was thinking about William. But yeah, of course it broke her. It was a new reality. It was 30 years later. William wasn't a great person. And he was gone, and she was living a different life, right? So I think it was hard no matter what, because Teddy was not only just, he was a confidant, he was a friend, he was a support system, he was everything to her. So, of course she had that reaction, but I think it's a separate entity than the William and Dolores relationship. But yeah, I'll take one more question. Let's see if we can find one here. Kells Cosby says, the pearls that Dolores took were the pearls of other hosts. Maybe the conflict they experience are the original host versus Dolores override. Oh, so are you saying that you think that she took original pearls and she downloaded herself onto them? What I will say with that is they showed from Bernard's perspective that she reprinted pearls. So I think it's clear that she actually did copy herself 5 different times. But I don't think we can completely write off that Dolores won't work with other hosts in the future. I think Dolores is really going to start to look like a real villain because that's what she needs to be. I think she will also let Westworld play out. She could put hosts within a simulation to make them suffer. She'd be seen as a terrible person, but she's doing it to make them conscious. And we'll see what happens down the line. We could have a crazy story of a civil war between Maeve and Dolores. It seems like they're really putting those characters against each other. That would be an interesting dynamic because Maeve is fighting for the freedom of hosts, but can control them all with her mind, whereas Dolores is making them suffer to make them conscious, so they don't get copied by Maeve or controlled by Maeve. So it's pretty crazy. But we have 10 minutes till the episode drops. I'm going to let you guys all go. Thank you so much. This live stream has been a complete pleasure. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you so much for the coffee money. I very much appreciate it. In terms of today, I'm going to be watching the episode. It'll be done in an hour and 20 minutes. I'll be putting out my reaction and review around 12:30. And then I will be putting out information on when we're going to do another live stream to really talk about this show. If you want to, let me know what you think about what you thought about the show, put it down in the comment section in this video, just to give me an update on what you thought of the episode. That would be great. But I guess that is it. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Take care. Bye.